the cloaking device.
Hello again, and welcome back to Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal developer commentary. I am Tony Garcia.
And I'm Mike Stout.
And this week, we are taking on Hollow Star Studios, which is a Giant Clank level, if I remember correctly.
It's a Giant Clank and a Ratchet segment. It's got a twofer in there.
And Ratchet's in a bellhop uniform.
And I think, Tony, this is another level that the two of us both worked on.
I don't know about that.
I think you worked on the enemy segment in this level, and I worked on the Clank stuff. So we may not have worked on it together, but, you know.
I might have worked on some enemy stuff. I don't know if I worked on the enemy segment proper, but we'll see. I mean, my memory isn't great as to everything that I worked on in this game. So.
And yes, we'll Ratchet is in a bellboy costume.
And right back into it with Secret Agent Clank.
Starting with Secret Agent Clank. All right. And there we go. I have control. Come on. Yeah. So I designed this segment. I designed all the Clank segments in this game. This one I really liked, though. I think of the Clank segments we did, this one was probably the best. Except I'm...
Oh, Mike.
So the idea, Tony, is that they're filming a movie, right?
Right.
And the director's giving me directions about what to do in the movie the whole time. And these are little mini ninjas. And he's a secret agent. It's good times, you know?
It is.
So the story I promised at the end of the last episode is going to have to come when we get to Giant Clank.
Oh, so you're just going to make people wait even longer?
I think so. I mean...
You made them wait a whole week, and now you're going to make them wait till the end of the episode.
Oh, look, we did slot machines again.
Oh, look at that.
Is this Greg again?
I don't know. Probably.
I forgot about these. Ah, oh, damn it. Okay, never mind. I think it was a little easier doing Clank gameplay with Secret Agent Clank than it was with regular Clank. Just
why so? Because it's more combat oriented?
Yeah, you could get away with just sort of cheesier, harder to explain mechanics. Like, for example, Scrunch and the banana, or why are you dodging lasers? That sort of thing. This puzzle, man, you wouldn't think this puzzle would be so hard to solve, but we had to do a lot of work to get it solvable. So far, not a very interesting episode.
Not so far, but it's your level, Mike. You're the one that's supposed to be giving us wonderful insights.
Yeah, but you're the one who's supposed to be prompting me and asking me questions and helping me remember. Like, my brilliance, Tony, is not the entire equation. There's two members of this team.
Oh, look, there's the Gadgetbots.
Yes, there's the Gadgetbots. It's difficult to do a Clank segment without the Gadgetbots. It's almost expected. Woo! Run, Scrunch, run. It's sad that the like the fake backdrops and stuff only existed in that one part of the level.
Oh, right. Yeah, the rest of it kind of loses a little bit of the being on a movie set
that's
sort of aesthetic.
Well, if I remember correctly, we were like way behind on this level, and the art came in really late for it, and we didn't have time to do that kind of custom artwork for every part of the level. But there was supposed to be. They got the casino theme in there, the fake cars driving by on the fake highway. It was pretty good.
I remember the Giant Clank set looks very nice. I do like the way the Giant Clank set turned out. Oh, here we are.
Here we are.
Oh, it's not, I thought this was a little bit later, but no, apparently it's coming up right now.
Terror of frickin' Talos. So, I guess as we promised last time, I'm going to have to try to fight Terror of Talos and tell you the story.
Yeah, it seems that's how it's going to have to go.
So the original design for this guy was insane. I think I had a little... So he was supposed to be an organic monster that had but it wasn't like a real monster. It was a dude in a monster suit.
Right, this was supposed to be like Godzilla.
Yeah, like a Godzilla fight. And the dude in the monster suit was supposed to have a robot on top of his head, controlling him with little levers, and he was supposed to have 6 arms that were connected with little strings, like a suit, and
like a puppet.
Yeah, like
right?
a puppet. And,
Yeah.
and you're running you're running around in this area destroying everything, and I was when we do the level designs, there's always a part of the level design where you have to pitch it to the people who are going to actually be implementing it, right? You have to pitch it to the art team, you have to pitch it to the programming team. And oddly enough, pitching this to the programming team was pretty simple. It was just like, oh yeah, I can do that. Giant robot, small city, whatever, it's good, right? But when I pitched it to the artists, they were sort of upset at me because what I was asking for was completely unreasonable. I mean, probably as you were listening to it, Tony, you probably thought about 1,000 reasons why it would be unreasonable to do a giant puppet with a robot on top of his head, and just in terms of technical limitations, but also in terms of how much work I was putting on the artists and animators for no real benefit, right? So we were in this meeting, and it was me and I think one other designer and Brian Algar, and then 5, maybe 6 artists. I think we had some character artists and so
probably a couple animators.
So it should be noted before I go further into the story that I was really proud of that stupid design. Like, I thought that I had created the best boss battle since the flying poop monster, or the singing poop monster in Conker's Bad Fur.
The Great Mighty Pooh.
Yeah.
Get it right.
Like, I was pretty sure that nothing could ever be better than that design. And so then they just sort of systematically took it apart in front of me. As to why it was a terrible idea.
And why it would never work.
And why it would never
we're
work,
not
yeah.
doing this.
And I want to point out, they were right. So I'm not saying they were wrong here. They were right. But I just had a meltdown in the middle of the meeting. It was just like, oh, well, fuck you then if you don't want to. Like, I was just really mad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like screaming at them. And then as soon as I started yelling, like, they all got really quiet and really serious, because none of them was actually trying to offend me, right? They were just trying to be...
They're trying to be realistic and just letting you know that this wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, but I totally lost it because, this was the best boss battle ever, Tony. The best boss... Oh, man. So I got a stern talking to about that, and Algar actually, in a speech at DICE one year, so used that meeting as an example of how, design can go really far afield, and also how you gotta be able to communicate and all that other stuff. So
now you're a cautionary tale.
I was used as a cautionary tale, yeah. So, but you know what? It was a cautionary tale for me too. That was the important thing. I learned something.
What was it about? I'm trying to just get into your mindset here. It seems like all they really changed was some of the personality of the boss, but most of the mechanics seem to translate well enough.
Yes.
And so it sounds like all you were really focused on was that the personality was all you wanted to come through. Not so much on the mechanic.
Yeah, all I was focused on was that they didn't want my brilliant idea. And it's one of those realities of game making, right? Like, you sort of alluded to it a few times when we were talking about it, but, like, when you're making a game with a bunch of people, you're not making what you want to make just because you want to make it, right? There's 1,000 little things that go into every decision on this, and I was really new. This was the first game I'd ever been a designer on. This was the first boss I'd ever designed, so it sort of came as a shock to me to realize that I was not right, and I don't think I handled it very well.
Well, it's not even. This is sounds like a weird case because it's not that you were wrong necessarily. I mean, I don't think anybody would deny that adding more personality to the boss would make it better.
Right. Yeah.
It's simply just a matter of it's not feasible.
Exactly. Yeah. What I was asking them to do, just for technical reasons and for time reasons, was just not. It couldn't happen. Not on the PS2, and not in the time that we had. So yeah.
So it's not even a matter of not wanting it. It's a matter of just coming to realize that it's just not going to happen. And it's not even because it's a bad idea. It's just not going to happen. In a lot of ways, that's even harder to swallow when people are like, yeah, okay, look, it's a good idea. I wish we could do it, but it's not going to happen. That's a hard pill to swallow sometimes when you have to come to that sort of realization.
And I think it was actually something Lloyd said in the meeting that set me off in the first place. And it's funny because it's Lloyd, right? Knowing Lloyd would never intentionally make anyone like actually upset. Right? He was joking. He was joking, right? But what he said is he's just like, so when you, it was either he said this or Gerton said it, I forget. But he was like, so what do you do? Like when you're designing, do you just roll dice and like, okay, so he's gonna be a monster and he's gonna have puppet arms and he's gonna do all this, and it's like, you know, he was mocking it a little bit, but
that sounds like a Gerton thing.
Not in such a way that I should have, you know, freaked out about it though.
Right.
But yeah, and you're exactly right? Like what the final boss battle was exactly what I'd pitched, just with some minor, you know, theatrical differences.
Right.
And that's fine. Like, you know, I what I learned later on was that that's the sort of thing that goes on all the time, and it's not just a fact of life. It's a good thing. Because it means that, you know, all your bad ideas get vetted just as much as all your good ideas.
Right, exactly.
So anyway, that was sort of the long-winded story. I hope it didn't make anyone, you know, too sad that they had to wait a whole week for that. I didn't realize that it would be so hotly anticipated. But you know what, Tony? Maybe from now on we should end all of the episodes with cliffhangers. I know that you.
Maybe.
I know you love cliffhangers.
I do enjoy them so much.
Maybe we should do the type of cliffhanger where, like, we don't solve any of the problems that we brought up in the episode.
Wait. What just happened? A screen came out of Clank, and it was nefarious, and now he's talking to Courtney Gears? That was just weird. I don't think that made a lot of sense.
It was always kind of weird with the... whenever we needed to play an infobot or something, like having that screen in the cutscene was always something like a weird... It always ended up being a really weird thing, right? Like, in Ratchet 2, there was like a television screen on a wall in a desert cave. You know? Like...
Yeah, it was always some weirdness. The infobots were probably the least weird thing about it, but...
Yeah, when we actually used for real infobots, but...
Yeah.
But, you know, like, later on, it was just like, oh, there happens to be a screen here, or Clank's got one inside of him, which is a little weird. Oh, we're gonna get separated from Clank, Tony.
Well, we already were separated from Clank.
Well, I mean, we're gonna get separated for a little while. We're gonna have Scrunch, or not Scrunch. What was Clank's evil twin brother?
Oh,
Clunk.
I don't remember the name.
Clunk, right?
Clunk or Crunk or something like that.
Oh, man, I wish I could actually hear what was going on, because that would... Man, Carl Grande was a huge Clunk fan.
He was.
He, almost unreasonably so.
I think any level of being a Crunk fan would be unreasonably so, considering he's just basically Clank. And he doesn't really have much to do in general.
Did you know he was the ultimate bad guy in Secret Agent Clank?
Oh, was he really?
Yeah. As it turns out, he was behind it all.
That's awesome.
So you did have something to do with this level, right? Like,
I mean, when we talked about it before, I did do all the Tyrannoids.
Got it. So you had to deal with the setups and stuff.
Right.
Because
I don't think I was actually in here doing enemy placements and stuff like that this time around.
Oh, so one thing I learned from
these guys all painted or something?
Are they what?
These guys are all painted. They don't look like normal Tyrannoids.
That just might be the camera. Because they look normal to me. These are just the three-eyed Tyrannoids.
Right. Oh, well.
And there's a four-eyed Tyrannoid.
I do like the four-eyed Tyrannoid. I like those guys a lot. I like that effect that they shot out.
Isn't that just your last effect ever?
No, it's just a laser beam.
How'd you do this one?
That one, that was basically just the same laser beam that's on the Tyrannoids on the mechs, but with just a couple more splashes of particles on there. But it's still just the laser beam from the mechs, just sort of slightly modified a little bit.
Got it. Like it looks like you've got like maybe a scrolling quad and a particle at either end or something?
Yeah. That's pretty much exactly what's going on.
Cool.
I really like that laser. I was just a big fan of it.
There's a secret here, right? Isn't there like a golden bolt I can get?
Maybe.
Or I could play the fucking hacker.
I thought the biggest problem I kept having, and I was when we were watching Ratchet and Clank Future played earlier today, and it reminded me that one of my biggest problems I had in making this game was making the effects feel like they had some volume to them, because they were all just 2D particles. It was really, really hard to make the effects feel like they had any sort of volume and weight or whatever. Mostly because I'm not trained as an effects artist. I'm just a programmer, and that was always always finding such a hard time. And when I look back at what they were doing on the PS3, stuff like that, everything just has so much more weight and volume, and the textures are so much nicer, and it just makes me kind of jealous of what we had to deal with when we were here on the PS2, just struggling to make our effects sort of look passable.
What do you think they have on the PS3 version that makes their effects look more volume?
You can have a lot more particles. They got a better particle editor. I'm pretty sure they got the particle editor was made for the Resistance, right?
Yes, yeah. So the actual artists would, effects artists would do the effects instead of programmers.
Right. And I mean, they could just push so many more particles. When you can do a lot more texture, and when you can do a lot more texture work, and you can push a lot more particles, it's a lot easier to sort of make everything have a little more weight and volume to it. We just didn't really have that luxury. We could maybe use 15, 20 particles. And that's not maybe if we were spawning 3 particles a frame, we were looking at maybe possibly breaking the frame rate. So we had to be very careful even if we were doing that.
So we could have more than 3 particles on the screen, but you wouldn't spawn more than 3 of them a frame because they would live longer than one frame.
Right, exactly. So I mean, there was just it was always a consideration. Make sure you weren't leaving too many particles hanging around. Their lifetime had to be fairly short, and there was just a lot of those kind of factors that sort of made it really hard to give. I mean, a lot of these also just go away when you can actually author the texture and look at it in an editor and just see how it's really sort of working out. We didn't really have that ability.
Why don't you talk a little bit about what making particle effects was like in the Ratchet engine? Because I think we've had a good luck with the technical segments so far. Maybe people would be interested in that.
I mean, there's not too much that goes on there. If you know anything about particles, a particle is really just a 2D billboard.
Meaning that it always faces the camera.
So it's basically just a 2D square, texture that always faces the camera. And you can, use alpha and stuff to make it appear circular or whatever. But it always looks at the camera.
For example, in the hacker puzzle we're playing right now, all of these things are 2D billboards. There's no 3D geometry here.
Right. And so what happens is you can kind of get away with if you take a circle and it always faces the camera, when the camera is spinning around it, it'll kind of look spherical. Since the circle is always facing the camera, it kind of tricks you into thinking that it's actually a sphere, and it mostly does the job. But it doesn't really do the job. If you catch to the wrong angle, if you put 2 particles on top of each other or you try to offset the orientation a little bit, it kind of kills the effect. And there's a lot of ways where it doesn't quite look exactly right. I mean, it's still just a 2D texture always facing the camera, and it's to make it actually look like a sphere, it's pretty hard. What we would really want to do is just make a sphere and then put it in there and move it and manipulate it. And they're I'm pretty sure their particle engine at this point probably is able to support, geometry. And a lot of places do that, where instead of just having a straight texture, you can have geometry with it's like a particle, and you can have physics and stuff like that, and it works pretty well.
So we had a little bit of that, right? Like with the spawning chunks and
yeah, but
and
the
that
way
sort of
chunks
thing.
were set up is you couldn't just spawn a chunk out in the middle of nowhere. The chunk was set up in the model file, and it always spawned off the skeleton. You couldn't just say spawn this little crate piece.
What about?
And have it?
Oh, sorry. What about those like the little things that fly off the bomb gloves? Say.
Those are particles.
Oh, they're not 3D, like the little chunks that fly up on the ground.
Yeah, those are just 2D billboards.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. And that's the thing is you can get away with a lot, but a lot of that is dependent on having a very good texture. And if you can make a custom texture for every particle, you can get away with it, and make sure the texture is shaded right and all that sort of stuff, and you can make it happen. But when you have to reuse, when you don't have an artist who's just dedicated to making particle textures, it's very hard to just use what you have. I think we had a stock. I think by the end of RC3, I think the number of textures we had that were for use for particles was at about maybe 83 to 100, and that's not a lot. Like, that's a very small number considering the number of effects that we have. 93 to 100 is very small for basically all the effects that have been in Ratchet 1, 2, and 3, because we never got rid of the thing.
And if you're interested in what the library of stock particle textures is, you can look in the Insomniac Museum in the particle editors. You can actually look at all of the textures there.
Right.
I found something out about the hacker. Remember how I was saying I put in that cheat so that Tony, what the hell?
I don't know what's going on there. I don't know where he's trying to run to.
It looks like he's trying to run into the wall. I don't know
He's
about.
trying to go somewhere.
Turns out it actually is that cheat I put in is still in the game. I just since I was in lock strafe, crouch is on a different button.
Oh.
And I looked at the actual button and not, what mode you were in.
Clank, where have you been?
But yeah, if you hold R1 while you're on a hacker pad and play it, it will turn off the difficulty tuning.
Where's Courtney Gears?
And it'll let you replay all the hacker puzzles if you want.
What?
So that's good, right?
What about Nefarious?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, Easter egg.
Dr. Nefarious is aboard a star cruiser called...
What is his name? He's Kronk?
Okay, nice job.
Kank?
So,
Clunk?
just call Sasha.
I don't know.
I think it's Clunk. Klunk. Mary, do you remember the name of Clank's evil alter ego?
I really don't.
Oh, well, I think that's all for Holostar Studios.
Yeah, that was quick. Nice, quick little level.
Yeah. So for Ratchet and Clank developer commentary, my name's Mike Stout.
And I'm Tony Garcia.
And we'll catch you next time. All right, that's not too bad.